Welcome to Depression Proof Your Life Live, a space for honest conversations about mental health, mental wellness, recovery, and resilience. Here, we explore how communication, environment, and mindset work together to move us from silence to strength. I'm Marian Mills, and I created DPYL out of my own journey through mental illness, addiction, and recovery. These conversations are about breaking stigma, finding support, and reminding you that you are not alone. If tonight's conversation brings up heavy emotions for you, please step away and reach out for support. Call or text 988 or call 911. Let's begin.
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, is a condition that develops as a result of prolonged or repeated psychological trauma, particularly in situations where the individual was unable to leave or protect themselves. Unlike standard PTSD, which typically arises after a single acute event, CPTSD forms in the context of chronic adverse circumstances. For example, severe mistreatment during childhood, long-term emotional and physical coercion within the family, extended periods of isolation, exposure to extreme cruelty, or living in an environment of constant threat. Symptoms include intrusive memories and nightmares, avoidance of anything reminiscent of the trauma, persistent internal tension, and heightened startle response, as well as additional features such as a distorted self-image, difficulty regulating emotions, problems with trust and closeness, ongoing feelings of guilt or shame, and episodes of dissociation. In CPTSD, there is often hyperactivity in the amygdala, amplifying fear and anxiety responses, reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs emotional regulation and rational decision-making, and impairments in the hippocampus, which is involved in memory and the perception of time. These changes cause past traumatic experiences to be processed by the brain as if they are occurring here and now, rather than as completed events. As a result, the body remains in a constant state of survival mode, which takes a significant toll on both the mind and body.
Okay. I think Marian is having some technical difficulties, so until she can join us, I just want to say hi to Renee. She's watching. Hi, how are you? My name is Christy Harst. Oh, Sandy Harrison Cooksey is here. Hello, Sandy. It's really Sandy, but I am the guest on tonight's show with Marian Mills. Again, she's having a few technical difficulties. We can see her, but we just can't hear her. Hello. Yeah, she's figuring it out. But in the meantime, while she's figuring it out, she was kind enough to play 2 videos and then asked me to introduce myself. So here I am. My name is Christy Harst. I'm a voiceover actor and creator of the Building Doors campaign, where we advocate for gender equity in the media. So why did Marian ask me to be on her podcast, Depression Proof Your Life? Because she reached out to me and she goes, I'd love to have you on the podcast. I know that you have expressed that you have had your issues with mental health. Do you want to share? And I said, yeah, sure. And so then I started doing some research about what I wanted to talk about because, I thought I was all healed and everything. And then I started to find these videos where I was like, oh yeah, I'll send Marian these videos. That way it's succinct as to exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't have to worry about defining it because I'm not a doctor. And then, you know how that algorithm, that nasty algorithm, the minute you start looking up stuff, right? It starts feeding you more and more of it. And so I was telling Marian last week, I was like, oh, I'm kind of nervous about this live with you because not only am I talking about personal stuff, but a lot more started to bubble up and come up as all these new videos came into my algorithm. Thanks, algorithm. And I said to her, and I'm going to say it to anybody watching now that or listening on the replay, I don't have answers. I don't have answers. I would say that this is probably one aspect of my life that the minute I think I have it figured out, something else pops up, and it's not easy. So I am not on this podcast. I am not on this live to project that I know everything, that I even have helpful tips, because I really don't. I will share with you what I have learned and some of the things that have worked for me, but I want to be real clear that I am just here to share a little bit more about what I've went through, what I'm going through, what it has been defined as. And hopefully somebody will learn something from it or gain something from it, or even learn to be a little bit more empathetic of others that might be going through the same thing. Did you wanna try and talk? No. No, I still can't hear you. If you can hear Marian, put it in the chat because I can't, and I don't know if that's an issue. If I think Sandy and Renee are still here, if they can hear Marian, if you could put it in the chat that you can hear her because I can't. Let's see what comes up in the chat. I hear this buzzing. I hear the buzzing, right? I hear it's like you're almost there. It's like you're right. You're almost there. Yeah, you're almost there. Oh, I heard a click. Nope. Nope. And I don't see anything in the chat about them being able to hear you. Yeah. Well, you tell me what you want to do. You want to put in the private chat a question and I'll answer it? You can put your questions in the private chat and then I'll read it aloud and answer it. And if you didn't notice, first of all, I was super impressed with your intro. That was really nice. Your voice and the way it was written, very, very good. Very nice. Okay, so did you want to put a question in the private chat? And that way we'll do our best to, make it work. Technology. It never works when you want it to. Okay, I'll wait for the question in the private chat. Because I don't want to take away from your. Oh yeah, they're saying no, they can't hear you. Okay. No, they can't hear you. Okay. Uh, what did you put I'll wait. Okay. Oh, Sandy is saying that she hears the buzzing too, and so does Renee. Okay, so at least everyone's hearing the same thing, right? Look, these things happen, right? These things happen. We're voice actors, we can roll with it. Um, okay, so here's the first question that Marion had for me. Are you ready? Here we go. When did you first learn about complex PTSD and what led you to that realization? So, if you joined us a little late, you missed the videos that Marion showed describing exactly what CPTSD is. And so, as a little reminder, complex CPTSD. Oh, Sandy saying, can you talk about the two videos? I missed it. Sure. So, everyone kind of knows what PTSD is, right? Soldiers who come back from major events like wars or war zones, they have post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it revolves around a major event, right? Like one core major thing. Whereas complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. Okay. CPTSD is the opposite of that. It is a slow drip that goes into a bucket, right? And over time, it just slowly fills. And what that in real life looks like is living in a house where there is domestic violence. So you're growing up as a kid and there's domestic violence. It happens all the time, right? And there's no removal. You can't remove yourself from that situation. And so after you do, when you're old enough and you're an adult and you leave, you never had time. You likely never went to a therapist because the people in the house didn't think it was a problem, right? And so now your body is still in fight mode. You're still highly anxious. And if you don't take the time to process that, or you don't even know you have to process that with a therapist, that can lead to a lot of other things. And so it's different for other people. So another example would be if you grew up um, going to a school where maybe there were a lot of kids who acted out all the time. And you were the one that didn't, right? You were the shy one, right? But you were surrounded by kids who were fighting and throwing things, and there were fights between classes, and you couldn't go to the bathroom because there was stuff in there. Every day, that's a constant. And it accumulates like a small drip into a bucket years over years, right? So, complex PTSD is something that I don't think a lot of people realize they may have because I didn't until a therapist told me. Because when she said PTSD, I was like, "I don't have that. I haven't been to war." I've heard it all the time with soldiers, but I didn't think what I went through was, like that. No, mine it wasn't that traumatic. Geez, I wasn't, dodging bullets. I hear the buzzing. Nope, can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, so the way they explained it to me was, I will just say this, I'm not on here to talk poorly about anyone, but I will just say I was raised in a very strict, narcissistic house, and there was a great deal of verbal and emotional abuse, and a lot of negative things said to me, directly to me, about me, and here's what that looked like for me in childhood. It meant I was hyper aware. I became very good at reading people when they walked into a room. I would immediately know based on energy, based on how they were breathing, exactly what was gonna happen, right? I knew. I got to pick up on it. Um, I oh, this is so hard. I grew up in a very controlling house, right? And so there were a lot of don'ts. Um, so what that looked like for me and how I processed that as a child and as, a teenager was an eating disorder, because it was all about control. I didn't have any. and I was dying for it. So I would binge eat, and then I would exercise for like 2.5, 3 hours. I would binge eat, exercise, binge eat, exercise. I don't even know if that's an eating disorder. It probably is. But back then, back then that was never talked about. It was never, anything like that. Sandy says, "Never heard of it. Never heard of its would consistent bullying." Yes. So, yeah, bullying in high school. So I would go to school every day with knots in my stomach because there were certain people who would just give it to me every day. And then I went home, right? So, um, after high school after high school, and I went to college, I got real wild, y'all. I was no longer in that house. Fun Christy came out. And that was never extreme, like, it was never, like, crazy, crazy, but I definitely had fun, but I never dealt with what had happened at home, right? I'd never dealt with what had happened at home. So, when things would pop up, I didn't know how to deal with them. So, I continued the binge eating, but then I added self-harm. So, then there was some self-harm. And it was interesting because, uh the behavior and how I was treated when I was younger led to me not being able to have successful relationships with both men and women. So I didn't know how to look for people who would value who I am as a person. I was always taught that no one would like me, so I had to be a different version of myself, and I always prided myself on being work Christy and not work Christy, right? Or, um the version of what I thought everyone wanted to see, which was on TV, right? So, I remember this one time when I was in college, one of my sorority sisters, we had been doing something, and we were in her room, and she called me out. She was like, we've been hanging out for, like, 3 or 4 months now. We go all these places together, but you really don't share anything. I don't know anything about you." And I started to cry. Like, "What do you mean you don't know anything about me?" And only now can I look back and know what she was saying, because to this day, I can tell you I have maybe 2 best friends, that's it, like 2 friends, because I don't trust anybody, and why should I? Why should I trust anybody with how I was raised? If those people can't even love me for who I am, if those people can't listen to my deepest, darkest fears without criticizing me or making fun of me, why would I do it with my sorority sister? Why would I do it with a boyfriend? Why would I do it with anyone else, right? So, and also at work, right? It affected my work relationships, it affected my personal relationships, all of it, right? And, so there's eating disorder, there's self-harm, there's inability to form healthy relationships. So when you look at that as a young woman, I had a lot of relationships that I should have never been in. Never. With, men. Yeah, and I settled for things I should have never settled for. And um it's a direct result of how I was brought up, that constant drip, right? So I had this moment of clarity recently within the last, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I thought I had my stuff together. I was like, "Oh, look at me. Oh, I totally have it all tied together with the CPTSD. I wrote a speech. I started peddling my speech, talking about all the things that you can do to, like, whatever." I didn't have a clue. Listen, I was watching some of these videos that I was researching for Marion to play at the beginning, and I started to realize, wow, I did that. I did that. I always thought that I was just daydreaming as a little girl, but what I now know is I was disassociating. I had the ability to just almost, like, drift off. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people would think I was daydreaming, but you couldn't you couldn't break through to me when I was in that moment, when I was disassociating. I remember one time I was at Carol's skating rink because it was the only thing to do in rural town that I grew up in. And Carol's skating rink was very popular. All the kids went there, and we were doing the limbo, and we were in line to do the limbo, and it was my turn, but I didn't know it was my turn because I was disassociating. And I was just playing a scene in my mind. And people were shouting at me, people were yelling at me, but I didn't know. I was completely like, you couldn't. And as I came to and I, shook out of it, the owner of the skating rink, Carol, she was coming down from the DJ booth to try and say, look, it's your turn. And that happened all the time. I disassociated at school. I disassociated all the time. And it was easy. I could just go off and be somewhere else. But back then I didn't think that that's what I was doing at all. I didn't think about that at all. Hold on. Is there another private? I don't want to keep on talking and talking. Okay, here's another question and if you have a question, put it in the chat. Happy to address any questions or comments. I'd like to know if anyone had ever heard of CPTSD before, and if you understand the definition. What emotions did you experience when you first learned about you having CPTSD? I think I kind of relief, fear, validation, confusion, anger. Where are you now? Listen, I'm angry now. I'm really angry. First of all, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then it was described to me. I felt relief. I was like, oh, there's a name for it. That's great. And I talked to my therapist at the time about it. And after that, I was like, okay, great. I'm fine. But now there's so much more stuff coming up. And as my dad gets older, he will call me and he'll share stories with me about his childhood and his family. And he really wants to make sure that I keep engaged with these stories. And, if I ever have any questions to ask, because he wants me to know the answers to them. And these stories have been very triggering for me, and triggering because it explains so much about the house I grew up in. It explains so much about why I am the way I am. And it also explains why it's so important for me to stop that behavior, to be the generational curse breaker, because it can't continue at all. And, yeah, Sandy, maybe I am just a private person. Yeah. There are things that I still do to this day. There are still things I do. You want to try and talk? You're muted. Well, let me unmute you. Oh, you're unmuted. Yeah, you can't. Okay, you've given up. No problem. But stay on so everybody can see your face to face. Yeah. Sandy says never heard of it, and I feel like it should be talked about more. Right? So now let's put this into practical. Let's go. Let's break it down. I used to have a professional job, professional meaning traditional 9 to 5. And I worked with a lot of unhappy people. Maybe they're unhappy because they had something traumatic happen in their life. Maybe they grew up in a house with issues. Maybe they went to a school. Maybe they had a family member that every time came over acted inappropriately, the slow drip. And maybe they aren't capable of processing it. They don't have access to therapy. They don't have access to tools to work it out. And I'm not saying that should be an excuse for that behavior, but it certainly should make you a little bit more empathetic about what that person might be going through and why they're acting the way they're acting. Because actually in college and high school, I had a terribly nervous stomach. I couldn't eat much without getting, sick. And my stomach was just like, it felt like it was full of acid, right? It was just like constantly burning. And what I know now is that's because I was in constant fight or flight. I was constantly worried, I didn't want anyone to yell. I didn't want anyone to get upset. I didn't want anyone to do this. I had to be perfect. I had to do this. I couldn't be this. I couldn't say this. Oh, I can't say this, or someone's going to say this. And it was a lot. And so now think about a potential coworker or even a family member, a second cousin that you only see every once in a while that's acting out and acting a fool. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, oh, wait, I hear you. You heard now? You can hear me? Yeah, but it's just really low. Can you turn up your volume or something? I can kind of hear you. Oh, I can kind of hear you. Oh, okay. Anyways, so yes, not enough people know about CPTSD. Not enough people know it's a diagnosis. Not enough people realize that what they could be going through actually has a diagnosis, and there are tools to help you get through it. But it's not easy. It's very, very hard. And I don't like doing it. I don't like it. I don't like doing it. I don't want to deal with emotions and feelings because they make me feel crappy, and I don't want to cry all the time. Renee, she says, no, I had never heard of that before. I get it totally. Um, then, Ariel. Hi, Ariel. Coming into this live late, but yes, I'm familiar with CPTSD. Great. I'm glad people are talking about it. It helps everyone by shining a light. I agree. Yes, most people are in pain and managing trauma, right? But see, here's the thing. When you are a child and you live in those environments, you don't know any different. You don't know any, you think it's normal. You think that that's just how everyone's house is, or everyone's school is, or everyone's life is. Everyone's uncle is that way, or their aunt is that way. And that's what I thought. And it wasn't until well after I got married and started to have my own children that I realized, no, this was not normal. This kind of behavior was not normal. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm approaching midlife and I'm getting terribly nostalgic. And it makes me very emotional and almost romanticizing other times in my life. And then I have to bring myself back and say, there was nothing romantic about that, right? There was nothing about that should be on TV. Well, maybe if it was a juicy story, but, I find myself very angry right now because the more I learn about CPTSD, the more I realize what that looks like in people, meaning what they do, their actions, A, B, C, D, E, and how many of those I check off, and how many of those things have affected my trajectory in relationships, in job, in motherhood. Uh, I just get angry that that was what happened to me. But I know I just said what happened to me, right? And it did. But that's in the past. And I have a responsibility to myself and my family to fix it so that it doesn't continue. Because yes, as a child, I was a victim, but I'm not now. I'm not now. I'm far removed from it. And as an adult, I can make choices to stay away from the people and the things that bring me there. Marion, is your audio source possibly pulling from the native computer input instead of your studio mic? We could hear you very faintly. So there's that. Oh, look, she's like, and Renee says, I became a speaker and caregiver for every person in my family because my mom told me regularly to take care of your brothers and sisters. So I had to reverse that too. I asked my dad questions about why he was so mean and violent. It was his sister and cousin that shared the family traumas caused by the grandfather. See, it's passed down. It's so passed down. Marion is putting questions in the private chat here for me. As you began unpacking your childhood experience, what were some patterns or moments that stood out? Yeah. So when things are completely out of control and I can't manage, that's when I self-harm. That's when, and this still happens to this day. When I am overwhelmed because I feel like, again, I have no control, those things happen. I will say that verbal abuse is a huge trigger for me. And I'm just now starting to advocate for myself that you don't get to talk to me that way. You don't get to say these things to me. But that's just now, right? And I'm in midlife. Look how long it's taken. And look at how many people don't. They don't because they don't realize. Were there behaviors or coping mechanisms you used? Yeah, self-harm, eating disorder, that were rooted in survival. And what's been the hardest truth you've had to face about your past so far? So again, I'm angry I'm frustrated. Right now, it's very difficult for me to have access to mental health care, with insurance and, um, funds, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to have mental health care, and it's not as easy as everyone thinks. Um, because even if you can, you might not mesh with that person. You might not, um, it's a whole shaboo, right? It's a whole shaboo, and I don't have time for any more shaboos because I'm so busy and I have kids and I have this and I have that. And, our youngest is on the spectrum and he goes to therapy twice a week. And I mean, twice a month. It used to be 3 times a week. So, um, I, I think the hardest truth I've had to face is that I have so much more work to do. I have so much more work to do. I have so much more crying to do and so much more therapy to do and so much more cognitive behavioral therapy. I did that for a while and it was great. It was a guided meditation and I laid on my couch and then I did it over the phone and this woman, did this cognitive behavioral therapy or what is it when they guided meditation like they walk you I don't know what that's called. Maybe somebody knows what it's called. Um I forget what it's called. It's got a funky name. Um And she said to me, she goes, "You're really good at this." And I'm like, "It's because I have a very good imagination, sister." But she'll be like, "Okay, tell me what you see now when you're walking this way, and tell me what you see, and what do you feel, and all this other stuff." And then after our sessions, she would have me get some art paper and draw the scenes from my head and put it into 3D. And that was very therapeutic. And I also do this thing called qigong. And if you were to see me do it, it looks like, Tai Chi kind of, but it really helps me a lot, and, it I can hear that buzzing. I hear it. Say something. Oh, yeah, no, nothing. Um, the qigong. Ooh, ooh, whoa, go
Oh,
back.
qigong. I
Oh,
think I Are you serious?
yes!
It's okay, guys. Christy, I have the utmost love and respect for you and building doors. I just want to say that, guys, thank you so much. But I appreciate you for taking over, Christy. You did an amazing job, and I do apologize. And the reason is because apparently there's a short in the like the plug is literally not plugged all the way in, but it's working. But because when I
Oh,
plugged it all the way in, that's when it goes short. So I
don't
just
touch
need
it.
to get it. Yeah,
Don't
don't
touch
touch
it.
it, and I need to get a new cord. But no, continue, please. Go ahead and
Oh,
continue.
no, you take over. In fact,
No,
um
because the show, just like I've told other guests, this platform, it was built out of my own um, experience of depression, anxiety, alcoholism, but a lot of it, it's when I invite guests on here, it's about you telling your story. It's about because even as a CPS worker, when I was a social worker, I recognized that a lot of times people were hurting, as a lot of people have said in the comments, people were hurting, and sometimes they just needed to be heard. They just they just needed to get it out. And as you said, a lot of time, and God knows, like being a parent, I am not a parent. And I thank God that I'm not, because I know I would have I would have had multiple CPS cases. One of my family members would have had to take my kids to protect my kids, because if with my life being what it was, I know CPS would have been in and out of my kids' life, and then they would have been traumatized as well by what I put them through. So, uh, my hat goes off to parents when you're having to battle with everything you have to deal with, on top of being a wife, being a mother, being the boss that all of those things. So yeah, so please continue.
I don't remember what I was saying. Okay, I'll remember what I was saying. But I will say also, in addition to issues with control, I became very type A people pleaser. I wanted everyone to love me. I want to do everything right. And mainly because that was where my worth was found, was through achievements.
Okay.
That's what was expressed to me. Like,
Yeah.
you're good because you won. You're good because you did this. It's not because of who you are on the inside. It's for what accomplishments you have, how pretty you look, or how this or how that. And I think that a lot of women, especially that grew up in my time, can appreciate that. The 90s, early 2000s, it was all about how thin you were. It was all about fat-free this, low calorie that, and it was really important how you looked. And there was a lot of stress put on that. So, um, what's interesting about complex PTSD is it's not just one thing. It's a combination of so many things that can result in so many different behaviors
Yeah.
depending on the person. And so,
Mhm.
it's a struggle for me to not resort to what I did before, which was the binge eating, the self-harm, um, the negative talk, self-talk, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's very difficult because that's what I was conditioned, that's what I heard. So
Mhm.
it's automatically, in a loop, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I think a lot of women especially can identify with the negative self-talk, the negative comments, the constant put downs. And I'm not saying that everyone that experienced that has CPTSD, but
Right. Yeah.
it is a challenge to overcome. It's not easy to get rid of those voices.
I
Uh,
appreciate you for saying that because self-awareness is major. Being self-aware, and like you said, just being self-aware that is negative talk that you're diverting back to, and literally pulling yourself back in. Like, nope, I can't do that. I can't go down that, because again, it's very easy to resort back to what was comfortable and what you know.
you know, when I was younger, and this is up until my 30s, even after we got married, it was very type A, right? Very, I have to look this way. I would get up at 4:30 and work out. Um,
Mhm.
I Everything had to be super neat and organized. Um, what's funny is, listen, if you were to walk into my house right now, I mean, it's not pretty. There's some cobwebs up in the corners. There's piles of laundry in the basement next to the washer
Mhm.
that need to be done. I've gained 40 pounds in the last 4 or 5 years. I can barely motivate myself to walk the dog. I it's such a different, and there's part of me that wants to give myself grace for that and
You
say,
have.
"Look at all the years that you dealt with the other thing." Like, you may have been thinner and you may have had more stuff put together, but mentally you're much better than you were before. Right? You may be
Amen.
heavier, your house may be dirtier, but at least, you're mentally a little bit better off and you have more of an idea of what happened and how you can deal with it and what those triggers are and what it means when you self-harm and what it means when you do this. And there's dots that you can now connect. So in a lot of ways, I try to give myself grace, but ladies, when you look in the mirror and you can't wear what you want to wear, that's not the first thing that goes through your mind.
But you know what? But you know what, Christy? And that's why I wanted to pull this comment back up. What Sandy was saying, but what you're saying, that's where that grace is actually entered. Because yes, you might have that thought, "Oh my God, this doesn't fit," but again, you have to stop yourself. You self talking to yourself every single day. Again, I built this platform because it was important for me, knowing how important it is just to have a constant reminder of making sure, you know what, I'm not doing this. You know what, you have to, little bits every single day, no matter how small, no matter how minute. Yesterday, I ate a whole, like say for example, yesterday I ate a whole pint of ice cream. Today I didn't. Only ate half. Because everyone deals with things, as you said, differently. And I'm so happy that you said earlier about finding the right person. A lot of people give up on therapy because the first time they had therapy, it didn't work. They didn't like the person. I know the first time I actually had therapy, I was in tears the entire time. And as soon as the time was up, the lady was like, "All right, that's her time," and I left. I was. It was the most. It was just trauma all over again. And it was years before I actually had therapy again because of that reason. So, yeah, grace is, you have to give yourself grace every single day, multiple times a day.
And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. You know, I look back on my younger years until I was in my mid 30s and I'm like, wow, she was so strong, that girl. She was so strong. She got up at 4:30. She worked out. She had all her crap together. And I miss that girl a lot. Like I miss pre-kid Christy a lot. I was so fun and I had so much less on my plate, right? And
Yeah.
I had more time to focus on myself and do the things, right? But there's got to be a way, and I haven't figured it out yet. And if anybody watching knows, please spread the gold. I don't know how to find that girl I was before and bring her into what my life is now, because the life is, you know, night and day, right? Kids, no kids, husband, no husband, 9-to-5 job, no 9-to-5 job. All right, fine, Marion, go on. Wait, we are now in session. Go.
Well, you know, I try my best to remind myself that I am, you know, no matter how much knowledge I have as a social worker, I'm not speaking to anyone as a therapist, but it's important to, I kind of chuckled to myself when you said, you know, you want to go back. She was so much fun. She had her stuff together, but in all honesty, she really didn't. She was struggling with everything that you have now unpacked. You know what I'm saying? It looked like she had it all together, you know, but you were still dealing with a lot of these different things. So I would say it's important for you to pull out different things, like, you know, working out. But I think you still work out, right? I think you still work out, not as hard as you used to. The slow head shake. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You keep on with those delusions. Keep going. Keep going. Mm-hmm.
No, it's not necessarily delusions. It's, I mean, it was an honest
of me working
no,
out.
it was an honest question. I really didn't know. I thought that you still did, but I guess I think sometimes that can hold us. That can harm us as well. Sometimes wanting to go back to, because again, like you said, it's night and day. You know, your life is different. You're different. You have more self-awareness. A lot of those different things are different. So, oh, look, someone said that girl is still there and she's evolving exactly into another version of, okay, cut off. But yeah, that's what Sandy was saying. That girl is still in there. She's just evolving into another version of yourself. Love you, Christy. Thank you for sharing. You are so brave for sharing.
Who said that?
Sandy.
Oh, hi,
Sandy. But yeah,
she knows. Sandy knows I was nervous about coming on today because I am a very private person. I don't like talking about personal stuff, but and also just because so much has been coming up in me researching for my appearance today, you know?
Yeah.
And I really do think that more people need to know about CPTSD. They need to have a better grasp of what it means. And even if you don't, it doesn't apply to you, it more than likely applies to someone in your life, whether that be a coworker, whether that be a coach, whether that be, you know, you don't know. It's funny because, you know, again, growing up, I never thought that what I was going through was that bad. I didn't think it was a thing, right? It wasn't until later in life that my therapist was like, oh, girl. And I always am quick to compare. I am always quick to say, no. It wasn't, you know, no. My best friend growing up in my very small rural farming community had an older brother and a younger sister. So there's 3 kids. When she turned, I want to say 1st grade, and when all of them in 1st grade, their mother calculated how much money it took to flush a toilet. She calculated how much money it took to wash dishes. like the water bill. She would calculate it. She's good at math, obviously. She would calculate how much a load of laundry was for the washing and drying. And
Wow.
she would keep a list and charge each child. And then for birthdays and Christmas, their gift was to have money taken off their bill.
Oh,
So, and then when they got old enough to work, they would have to pay off. They'd have to put money towards the bill.
right.
And then for Thanksgiving, or no, I'm sorry, not for Thanksgiving, for Christmases and birthdays, they got a little deducted from the bill.
Right.
So think about that situation. Think about what love in that family was defined as. Think about the lack of compassion. Think about what those kids were reduced to believing they were in that family. And think about how that shaped them as adults. There are people walking around that are just like my old best friend from my hometown.
Yeah.
Or worse, right?
Yeah.
Or worse.
Right.
And so then those people treat you like junk. They're nasty with you. Well, can you imagine why they are? You know, we really need to, it's so difficult to talk about these things, and it's really, really difficult. And I know that it was going to be difficult for me to come on here and do this, but I think about my friend. I think about all the other people whose stories that, you know, I usually see on Dateline, but, or on documentaries on Hulu, that are so juicy. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be making light, but, you know, there are people out there. There's a lot more people than you think. There's a lot more people than you think. And then you can take in consideration the lack to access to therapy, to mental health, the financials of having mental health care. You know, I get insurance through my husband's job, but that doesn't mean that, you know, it's 100% covered or that I have access to great therapists. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many factors. And so I really hope that, if anything, the people who watch this on replay, who are watching now, get a sense of what CPTSD is, that they may be a little bit more empathetic when they see those kind of behaviors that are a result of CPTSD.
Right.
For example, people who are hyper defensive.
Yes.
People, one of the things, again, like the more I research this or the more they come up in the algorithm, I am very easily startled in my own house.
Me too.
Very easily startled. And I just always thought that was a thing. Oh, no. That is a direct result of my CPTSD. That is a byproduct of living in the house that I lived in and experiencing the traumas that I experienced. And it's because my nervous system is always hyper alert. So I just think that there's so many things that if even people took like 10 minutes to put in CPTSD in TikTok or Instagram and watch some reels, that they would be enlightened. They would be probably like, what? That's what that means? It would be interesting. Oh, Kanita, hi. I have not heard about CPTSD. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Yeah, you're welcome.
You know, Christy, I mental health is extremely important to me, and I'm very hyper aware of everyone walking around is dealing with something. That's just like when I put this platform together, you know, of course, out of my own experience with the mental health, debilitating depression and anxiety, alcoholism. But then I was like, this is for anybody that is struggling. People are literally just hanging on by a thread sometimes mentally, you know? You know, and it reminds me of a song, growing up. I don't know how many people remember the group or familiar with the group REM.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs from them is Everybody Hurts. That is such a true song. Everybody hurts in some way. And we can all go through, 5 of us can go through the same thing, and all of us can have a different response to it. Some of us will bounce back and keep right on moving, and some of us may be destroyed by it, you know? So yes, it's so important to have these conversations. I really do appreciate it. And of course, I don't know if you saw Renee's comment, which is so true. You know, just look at where we are, you know, society is right now. What you drive. Yeah. Looking at what you drive, and Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. The influence of being an influencer.
Yeah.
A lot of young people are so focused on that, and when if someone isn't liking, or following, it can really destroy them, because that is what they depend on, for likes and people pleasing.
Yeah.
Everyone's normal. Amen to that, Sandy. That is so true. Everyone's normal looks different. And liberty and liberty, right? Is that what that is? To
No.
give everyone grace. And yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I try to. That's what she was saying. I try to. The B got
Look,
accidentally hooked
look,
in there.
I like, okay. What does that stand for? But yeah, yeah. Christy, I really do appreciate you for providing this information. Do you want me to share a video, one of the videos again, just on a closing, or
Yeah, I
yeah?
think that'd be great. I think that'd be great to end on one of the videos.
Yeah, well, I really don't want to end there. I want to end, first of all, with traditionally the way that before we end, I do want to ask you one more question,
Hmm.
because I think that this was very important when you were talking about how important it is for you to talk about CPTSD, breaking that intergenerational cycle. How are you formulating that for your kids, or is it just through your own healing you're making sure that your kids, or is it a process that, of course, you're still working on?
When my daughter was, I think, 1.5 or 2,
Mhm.
she repeated something that I did, an action,
Mm. Okay.
an action that I grew, an action that I never wanted to see her do again. But she did it because she saw me doing it.
Yeah.
And it was, she was frustrated with something. And so
Mm.
she said and
Yeah.
did something, like
Mhm.
because that's what I was doing when I was frustrated, like, and she started
Right.
doing it. And it was like I saw how, first of all, how unattractive it is. I
Mhm.
saw how sad. I was so sad.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. Like this needs to change. And what was so hard about it was that it was so easy to act like the people who raised me. It was so easy. So easy
Mhm.
to be mean. It was so easy to say mean things. It was so easy. It was so hard to be kind. It was so hard just to be kind. And I just started to, honestly, I was faking it until I made it. I was like, okay, I'm going to be kind. And even when I was frustrated and I wanted to say the things that I heard growing up, I would be like, this is the best thing ever. And I love doing it with you. So fun. And then the more I said it, the more it became true. The more I switched my mindset about, no, you didn't keep me up all night. I had an opportunity to spend additional time with you. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Thank you for letting me take a 2-hour nap today. Thank you for sleeping with me for 2 hours today so we could catch up on sleep. I thank you so much. The more I practiced gratitude, the more I said things lovingly, even if I didn't mean them, the easier it was for me to be kind.
Yeah.
And so now my oldest is 12, my youngest is 10.
Mhm. Mhm.
And one of the things that I really try to focus on with Building Doors, which, if you're not familiar, is a campaign that I run for gender equity in media, is
Mhm.
that I treat people to the best of my ability how I would want to be treated.
Amen.
So I don't want to treat people like I was treated. I don't want to not get an email back. I don't want to be ghosted. I don't want to have somebody talking about me behind my back and then I find out about it through the grapevine, right? Through the VO
Yeah.
grapevine.
Mhm.
No. I also don't want to be one of those women that puts other women down, right? Because I can tell you that when I started voiceover full time 12, 13 years ago, I reached out to women who never emailed me back or who would email me one sentence and give me the brush off. And
Yes.
so because of how I was treated growing up, because of how I got a glimpse of what that would be like for my kids if I continued it,
Mm. Yeah.
I now want to make sure that I do my best in making sure that I treat people how I should have been treated. I uplift people because I was not uplifted. I speak positively and I encourage them, even if I'm not giving great news, because that's how I should have been treated. And I really tried, and I fail sometimes, just like any human being, right?
Yeah, you're
And it's
human.
and other people might not accept what I say as as caring, as wanting to be
Right.
encouraging and kind or whatever. But I truly think that shift when she was like 1.5 or 2, in my practice of gratitude and practicing how to be loving has
Yeah.
turned me into a empathetic, loving, considerate person and kind of opened something in me that was closed because of how I was treated as a child.
Christy, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I do want to share a video of this, one of the videos, just for the people that may have come in late, a little bit later, and missed one of the videos. But while I'm playing the video, do you mind going to get Consuelo?
Oh, let's see if Connie's here. Okay, hold on. You go play the video.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Connie, oh, did you get that?
I did, but I love it. But I told you, anytime I ever heard you, yeah, I love it. But yeah, go ahead. I'm going to play the video.
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, is a condition that develops as a result of prolonged or repeated psychological trauma, particularly in situations where the individual was unable to leave or protect themselves. Unlike standard PTSD, which typically arises after a single acute event, CPTSD forms in the context of chronic adverse circumstances. For example, severe mistreatment during childhood, long-term emotional and physical coercion within the family, extended periods of isolation, exposure to extreme cruelty, or living in an environment of constant threat. Symptoms include intrusive memories and nightmares, avoidance of anything reminiscent of the trauma, persistent internal tension, and heightened startle response, as well as additional features such as a distorted self-image, difficulty regulating emotions, problems with trust and closeness, ongoing feelings of guilt or shame, and episodes of dissociation. In CPTSD, there is often hyperactivity in the amygdala, amplifying fear and anxiety responses, reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs emotional regulation and rational decision-making, and impairments in the hippocampus, which is involved in memory and the perception of time. These changes cause past traumatic experiences to be processed by the brain as if they are occurring here and now, rather than as completed events. As a result, the body remains in a constant state of survival mode, which takes a significant toll on both the mind and body.
Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Hi, Connie. Oh, look at you. Looks like a stuffed animal.
Say hi, Connie Sue.
You don't even look real.
Hi,
You
Connie.
look like a big stuffed animal.
I just saw her tag. Her tag says, "Feed me and tell me I'm pretty." Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I want.
Is she?
She's 4, and she's half sheepdog, half standard poodle, and she is a nervous Nelly anxiety mess. Just a mess.
So
And
she doesn't shed, right?
No, she doesn't shed.
Love that. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she doesn't shed. Yeah, and quick fun story. When my kids were younger, probably about 2 years ago, she was 2, my son left the second story bedroom window to his bedroom open with the screen open. And she just loves the kids. She loves the kids. She feels that she needs to be by them all the time, hurting them, like, keeping them all together.
Yeah, exactly.
She jumped out of that window. She jumped out of that window to get to those kids and did not hurt herself or anything. And just was so proud that she jumped out of that second story window.
I'm going to get
with these kids. Yes. Yes.
I appreciate that. For anyone that does not know, the reason that I started, it was actually one of the second guests, the first guest that I interviewed, it was pre-recorded. They actually had a dog at their side, and they said, I'm sorry, they were apologizing. I was like, no, that's a perfect way to actually end the show. After having some heavy conversations, dogs and kids can bring light. But I also did some research. Consuelo actually it represents a symbol of peace and strength. So love the name, love it. So Christy, I want to put up your contact information while I have this up. If you could just share with everyone how they can contact you for yourself as well as Building Doors, and then we'll close. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My LinkedIn is Christy Harst. You can find me at Christy Harst VO at most other social media, christyharst.com and buildingdoorsvo.com, and at Building Doors VO, everyone else. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more about myself. And I hope that the people who watch on replay or have watched or watching now walk away with a little bit more understanding and empathy. I know I've said that like 4 times, but I want to keep hitting it home.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Christy.
Thanks so much for joining us on Depression Proof Your Life tonight. If this conversation stirred up heavy emotions for you, please reach out for help. Call or text 988 for 24-hour support in the U.S. If you're outside the U.S., look up your local crisis helpline. Stay connected with DPYL by following us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and visit depression-prooflife.com for resources, blogs, and to share your story. Your voice may be exactly what someone else needs today. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, healing is possible.